Well, the things that I remember, I think, most of all about this place are the occasions when we tried to bring a few musical things into the services. Not that everybody thought it was wonderful, but most of the youngsters, I think, did, and quite a few of the oldsters too. Particularly, I remember a performance of Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which we did here with Andrew, I think, at the organ or on the piano, or some role anyway with the music. And also another occasion we had Jesus Christ Superstar, the record, and we threw up on the screen there some slides of paintings by the great masters and tried to mix them with the modern music, and that seemed to go down quite well with again the youngsters, but not only them. Some of the other things we did were pretty much of an unmitigated disaster, and I won't talk about them. But it was a great time, and there was a lot of young people about, and of course we had the university chaplaincy. And I remember that during my time here, they opened the chaplaincy building at the university, and that was a bit of a problem in a way for the church, because everybody had expected that the students would come here, whereas there were strong ecumenical pressures for them to identify with the chaplaincy. But we managed to, I think, keep both sides going and interested. Certainly we provided a lot of cups of tea and coffee and bacon sandwiches at our house, I think, for these various young people's groups.
We used to have teas on Sundays, didn't we? And then after evening service.
Yes, that's right.
Groups at home.
Anyway, whilst I was here, it was 69 to 72, and people may remember that in 1968 there was quite a sort of revolt going on in the student world, and certainly when we first arrived in Norwich we saw a big banner outside the university saying this university is under occupation. We wondered what on earth we'd come to. But there were a tremendous number of students who were sort of questioning their role as students and wondering whether, what they'd been expected to do in the sixth form was what they should really carry on doing. Did they really want to be an aeronautical engineer, or should they go and work in a third world country? And that was a time of great sort of ferment and interest. And people used to say to me, well, you preach about these, world and social themes. What are you doing about it yourself? And I thought to myself, well, I'm preaching about it, but I ought to perhaps be doing something practical as well. And so by stages I found myself drawn into being a city councillor here in Norwich, which I was for the last 18 months or so of my time here. But working on the city council, fairly controversial. I think I gave the superintendent minister quite a few headaches, to say the least. But I must say he was very generous and understanding, and although I don't think he quite agreed with what I was doing, he certainly didn't stand in my way. Anyway, eventually I realised that the city council could only do as much as the government would allow it to, and it seemed a sensible thing to try and have an influence on the parliamentary scene. So I got chosen as a parliamentary candidate for Shipley, which is next door to my hometown of Bradford, and with this church's and the Methodist Church at Large's permission, I was allowed to go and be a sector minister working in the sector of politics. Now, I fought 2 elections in 1974, unsuccessfully, but gained a great deal of experience, and after that, after discussion with the church authorities, it was agreed that I would continue as a sector minister, but working in the industry and local government field. And so I became an industrial development officer, first of all in Kirklees, based on Huddersfield, and then in Barnsley in 1979, and we've just done 11 years in Barnsley, and now we're on the verge of moving on to another place in the north, Blackburn, over the Pennines, where I'll be becoming chief executive of the local authority in that neighbourhood. So having started from the influence of students in 1969, and that's where I find myself. But of course I remain a Methodist minister and shall do so to my dying day. I take services every Sunday in the local area, and I expect I'll be doing the same if they'll have me in Blackburn. And I find that the church-based ministry and the sector-based ministry are 2 halves of a whole, not 2 separate entities, and most people see it that way. Although, of course, I understand that there are many who have difficulty in understanding how it can be so, and although I wish they would understand me, I understand them that they can't quite make this connection. It's been a real pleasure to come back this weekend and see quite a lot of people that we used to know 20 years ago. Good to see them all in good heart. And I think, you know, all churches are facing a challenge, of course, at the present time. No church community ever stood still. It's always up and down and changing. But it's good to see so many people here who have got a commitment to the church and to service in the community and in the home and so on. And it's just good to know that the work that's been going on for the last 50 years is certain to go on for another 50 years, whether it'll be in this building or some other building or in some other way, who knows, but the task remains. Well, the thing I remember about Rodham Dowson was, well, several things, but one in particular. When our two young children were here, they were asked to take part in a fancy dress parade, and Laura and Andrew, who were about, 3 and 4 or something at that stage, got dressed up as myself and the Reverend Rodham Dowson, you see. And Andrew, to try and imitate Mr. Dowson, we gave him a number of Brillo pads to put on his hair.
Made him a wig,
Made him a wig out of wire wool, yeah, that's right. Because that's rather the texture of Rodham's hair as we remember it.
I don't think he was worried about it. I think he was rather flattered, wasn't he?
Yeah, oh yes, he wasn't worried in the least. And that's one memory I have of him. The other is that, you know, he really was quite concerned about what my activities meant for the congregation, but never once did he try to dissuade me from the course of action that I decided upon. He was always very supportive, and I think he fielded a number of complaints quite cleverly and without sort of unduly worrying me about them. This I learned afterwards, not at the time. He had quite serious illnesses, I think, during our time here. And he was a man who never said no. He always carried on struggling and trying to do the job even when he was quite poorly, I think. And that I admired him for tremendously. He seemed to be full of energy. I mean, he was supposed to be ill, and yet I remember him rolling around on the floor with our two children,
Yes,
letting them jump up and down. He didn't seem to worry about that at all. But I'm always grateful to him for the way in which he did support me in the way I've described. Even though it may have been against his own better judgment, I don't think he saw that this was a proper role for a minister, but if it was my conviction, then so be it.